my friends, welcome back to the channel. I am presenting my third card for the month. Let me just get my list out. I am using the Thanks circle die. I've also got stitch circles I'm going to use a little bit of, and the small cross layered, or cross small layered I think it's called. We've got some other little bits and pieces as well. I'm using here Twisted Citron and putting a layer over my card. I'm using the oxide sort of thing. So it's going to have a little bit of a chalkier, muted sort of look, but I quite like that. I thought that was quite nice for this card. We've got peacock feathers, and then I'm going to come in through with Villainous Potion. Now, that's the thing I like about oxides and distress inks. We all know they look like a hot mess until they just don't. You just have to keep plodding through it and sponging and just trying to get as much color down as possible. Until you get the color down, a lot of color down, they can look a little bit of a mess. This is going to look awesome at the end of it. I've just got a scrap piece of cardstock. It's long. I'm using my thumb to hold it in place. I've said it before. Yes, I could use a little bit of sticky tape. You could use lots of different things to protect your fingers. Or in fact it's actually protect the cardstock from any oil that is on your fingers. So that's why I'm using it. But, a lot of people don't like mess. And I don't care about mess on my fingers. I care about fingerprints on my cardstock. Sometimes of course you don't like some mess if you're about to go out. But, it's all good. Dried all that off. I'm just making sure that my die is big enough. So the Thanks circle, we've got the two designs now, the two dies. The one, as you can see here, cuts out the slits in the card panel. The other one has a circle for the front that you can cut that out and make it into a bit of a radiating, like thanks, with sunlight radiating out from the sides. I'm going to use it a little bit differently. I've got the small cross layered, so we've got one of the larger crosses, and I think I've got about 3 or 4 of the smaller cross, and as you can see there, we've layered it up, so it's got a lot of dimension without having to worry about cutting up foam. I'm using the stitch circles here just to get an idea of where I want to position that and how big it needed to be. This panel here, obviously, as you can see, is raised up with a bit of foam. I'm using a 16 by 16 centimeters, so it's 160 centimeter squares. Did that just not make any sense whatsoever? Oh dear. The card base is going to be 16 centimeters square. So we have a 15 centimeter square, and we also have 16s that I know off the top of my head. So we're going to go for a little bit bigger card, because I thought about cutting off some of it and using it down to a standard card size, but it just lost it a bit too much. I've got a black piece of cardstock here that we're mounting that on. I'm just removing all the backing off my tape because our 3M Scotch foam tape is very, very strong. The circle in the center, I armed about it, having it black, but it just looked a bit too morbid, because if you're giving this to a person that is from a religious background, it's the birth of Jesus Christ and it's a time to celebrate. So the black just didn't do it for me. And as you can see here, I ummed and ahed about it for quite a while. I've got my Merry Christmas, my tall script, Merry Christmas. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do. This is the chunky Merry Christmas, and as I said, it's not doing it for me. No, it's not doing it for me at all. This is where I half thought about cutting it down, but it's like, no, I don't think so. I will eventually get to that point. It's like, yep, no. I was just trying to think of other different ways to do it. You could have probably have it on the side and have it sort of radiating out from one side, but we went against that. I am not lightly, but I'm carefully tapping some Versamark embossing ink onto this cross. I only want it on the top cross. Add my gold embossing powder. Now this is just one that I get from a local craft shop. It doesn't actually have a name. It's sort of, dare I say, unbranded, but this is a craft shop that has it. They get it in bulk and then they cut it down. I'm going to add another layer of that onto it so it's nice and thick and just delicious. But don't eat it, but delicious. You know what I mean? Just like, it's going to look so good. I have flicked off the edge, like on the lowered cross. We're just going to do another layer. Once you've got like 2 layers on, it's pretty thick and you'll just see it bubbly. Can you see that? It's hard to see because I'm a little bit off camera and a little bit blurry, but it's just very glossy. Now I did get a little bit of the gold, and I'm talking about tiny little bits, so I'm using a craft knife here to just lightly scrape it off. And it's just the tiniest little flicks every now and then, which, considering I did 3 layers of embossing paste, that's pretty darn good. So that's going to be my little cross, I think. Again, I've done the same with the cross, and I've cut this out 2 times. I think it was just the 2 times. I'm going to glue those down together, just using a little bit of a glue, just to help give it a little bit of dimension. And then I'm going to do the same as I've done with the cross. We're going to put a little bit of embossing ink onto the top of it. Now obviously I've got the 2 that are done. A little bit of the embossing ink over the top of it. Drop it into the gold embossing powder. I'm using a piece of paper here just so I have something flat to put that onto. The only thing really tricky about doing this is making sure of where you hold it. So I had it either side of the Merry Christmas, and then it dropped, so we're just heating that up. So then you have to go over it again and make sure that the area is done. You could do 1 layer and then with the second layer go over that area, but I like this. I just, in my head, it just works out better. So there is that all done. We're just going to go through and do the Merry Christmas now, or the Christmas I should say. We've done the Merry. I did them individually in the end because they were just going everywhere, just flying. I mean, they were staying on the paper, but they were jumping around a little bit. The other thing you could have done is used a bit of the gold foil, but I really just liked, there was a little bit more dimension in this. The center of our circle is going to be glued down, so we're using it, but it's going to have that little bit of dimension because we've added the foam to the rest of the panel and just had the circle flat. I'm supporting the middle of my cross with a bit of foam just to make sure, because the top and the bottom do hit the outside of the circle, like they hit the edge of the circle. As you can see there, the other 2 don't, so we're just supporting that middle bit just going to put a little bit of glue on my Christmas and adhere those down. Just kind of get a little bit. I'm using my phone to weigh it down. That's all good. We use what we've got near us because, you know, we're so engrossed in what we do. Isn't that correct? We're just engrossed in what we do. We don't sort of think, oh, I shouldn't use this, I should use... my phone is heavier. It does the job. Next, it needed a little something. So I've got some clear sequins out of my stash and I'm just adding those around. I'm going to use, honestly, a fair bit. I think I've got about 7. And we're just getting an idea of where to place them around. The other thing, I'm going to glue those, put those down with a bit of liquid glue. The other thing I'm going to do once I fight with my crystal katana is add a little bit of stickles. I'm using the lines that I've already got on the circle, the thanks circle, and just accentuating that. I think that's a word. Accenting the circle, making them stand out that little bit more and giving it a little bit of sparkle. And that's my card. I will leave a link down below to all the information about what I'm using here today. If you like this video, it would be wonderful if you could hit the subscribe button and like the video. That way it lets the powers that be know that it's not a bad YouTube channel. That's it. I hope you're well. Take care. I will talk to you next time. Bye.